Hello and welcome to this latest edition of the Predictive World. We are here once again with another extremely insightful conversation that's coming your way. My name is Meyer Associates. I'm the Chief Growth and Operations Officer at SalesChoice. And we will today be talking about a smarter organizational design architecture, how to build one, and what's that missing link. Joining me in our conversation are two extremely reputed and knowledgeable people that I'm privileged to have. But before I go into that introduction, what is the Predictive World? The Predictive World series is a forum where we have hosted experts and thought leaders in the space of AI, organizational productivity, and growth, particularly sales, over the years with many, many conversations spread across webinars, podcasts, and video series. And you can find all of these at saleschoice.com/resources. The names and the conversations speak for themselves. And to add to that very rich list, I am joined as always by my partner and CEO, Dr. Cindy Gordon, and an extremely accomplished guest, an author, Dean Meyer. Who is Dean? Well, as I bring him in to say hello, he's the author of 8 books on organizational design. Through each of them, he has endeavored to challenge conventional thinking and go about just how should the hierarchy of empowered internal entrepreneurs, the network should be restructured and should work its way around the organizational design. And to hear more about it, we will be going through an extremely rich conversation in just a bit. But before that, Dean, welcome to the forum. It's a pleasure to have you.
Malay, thank you very much. Cindy, thank you for including me in your intriguing podcast series.
Yeah, it's great to have a chance to have a dialogue with you again, Dean.
It's my
honor. And with that, well, I know we can't wait to hear everything you have to share with us and the rich summary of all your books. So let me turn things over to Cindy. And we have, of course, come with a set of questions to work our conversations around. And Cindy, why don't you take this away from here?
Great. Thank you so much, Malay, for those warm, welcoming comments. And Dean, as I mentioned before, it's a delight to have you with us again. I have many fond memories of us, my early pioneering change agency days when you were by my side. We were having to make sense over in a large telco of bringing value to the table. You're such an accomplished author. I don't know where you find the time to write so many books, but there's always a story, Dean, of why one writes another book. And I absolutely loved reading your book on the organizational design concepts. And I really just wanted to just better appreciate what the catalyst was of this particular book, and even better appreciate the inspiration behind it, because it likely, my intuition is you're leaving a very clear footprint of the blueprint that's required. And, so I saw this as really, I don't know if it's a legacy piece, knowing you, there's another 4 books in you, but I really would like to get to the essence of what the catalyst was, because I'm sure there were wonderful bees buzzing around you.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. I've known you since you were a very young manager on the rise, and here you are, CEO of your own company. I'm so proud of you. And you've known me all these decades, so you know that I've been studying for over 35 years the concept of how to bring entrepreneurial jobs into big organizations and into the organizational hierarchy. My prior book and most of my prior work focused on the mechanics of implementing that kind of organization. Cindy, you'll remember my work on organizational structure. I turned organization structure into hard science with clear engineering principles. In fact, you may remember us doing this. We can look at any organization chart and know who's fighting with whom, who's not making objectives, and who's got ulcers. The science is that clear. And same thing for our resource governance processes. Here, I guess, somewhat of a pioneer at applying market economics inside of organizations. Now, I'm not talking about chargebacks, but market economic principles inside organizations to sort out our resource governance processes, to bring supply and demand into balance, expectations into line with resources, to align priorities across the entire enterprise, all without bureaucracy. And my work in culture, we figured out how to bring massive change in culture to very large organizations in less than a year. So prior books focused on the mechanics of all of those pieces. But before I fade into the sunset, I wanted to bring all of those dimensions together into, as you said, a comprehensive blueprint of how organizations should work, and paint a really vivid picture of exactly how that kind of organization can be made to work, as well as sharing the principles of design and the implementation processes. So yeah, this is kind of my capstone. And I don't know if I have more books in me. I put it all into this one, Cindy.
Oh, knowing you, Dean, there's probably another 10 or so, and maybe more. You're just such an enlightened leader. Dean, I know, having had the privilege of reading a number of your books, that you always are very alert to the implications of a hierarchical command and control leadership style within the organization to really, ignite the entrepreneurial DNA. So maybe if you could just share a few more of those perspectives on entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship and, sort of the, if you want to call it that, fuel to really drive the agility in an organizational, leadership network.
A lot of thinking on organization design goes back to the 1960s. Alfred Chandler said quite famously or infamously, structure follows strategy, and shortly thereafter Jay Galbraith came out with the STAR model. And a lot of organization design practitioners are still following that structure follows strategy approach. But wow, the world has changed in 60 years. Have you heard the term VUCA, Cindy? VUCA?
I have, because you shared it with me. So let's share it with everybody else.
It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that describes the world we're living in. In this world, strategy is not simple. It's multifaceted. And so I always say plural strategies. And strategies are highly volatile. They have to be. I mean, look at what we've just been through in the last few years. A pandemic, now war, economic volatility with a banking crisis, environmental, climate change hazards, and the changing expectations of new generations of workers. It's a different world. So organizations just have to learn to be agile. And when I say agile, I don't mean the agile engineering development method. I mean that organizations have to be able to very quickly recombine their talents and competencies to address ever-evolving strategies. Now, hierarchy, I think, is a good thing. In some ways, it's good to be sure that we have all of the needed specialties within the organization somewhere. It's good for people management and performance management. But it's not a good way of getting work done. If you have to send everything up and back down the hierarchy, it creates a bottleneck and slows us down. And meanwhile, if you take a command and control view of things, even worse, there was this theorist who said, executives do the strategy, middle managers do the tactics, and the rest of us poor blokes just do as we're told. Horrible, horrible. Think of the kind of jobs that creates, and what a waste of all those bright minds.
Yeah, and motivational energy, self-esteem, right?
Terrible. So hierarchy has its value. I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we need to find new ways of coordinating and delivering actual work. So can I tell you a little bit about my vision?
Absolutely.
So imagine a world where every box on that organization chart is defined as a business within a business. And the people in that box are accountable for running that business. So they're accountable for delivering results, products and services to their customers, whether their customers are internal to the enterprise or beyond, external, or perhaps a combination. Think what this does for the ethos of working, for the ecosystem we work in. Accountability for results is number one. Customer focus, we recognize one another as customers and suppliers. So it really sorts out internal relationships. We don't get into tussles over control. It allows us to really focus on specialization so we can get really good at what we do. And in the open market, specialists earn more than generalists. So the whole reason organizations exist is to allow people to specialize. And the more we specialize, the greater the performance of the organization as a whole. But specialization depends on great cross-boundary teamwork. So in this business within a business world, just imagine you've got an assignment and perhaps a strategic initiative. Well, think about building a house. You have a general contractor who hires a plumber, electrician, and so on. So as the prime contractor for the strategic initiative, what's the first thing you do? You line up your subcontractors, meaning other groups within the company, and they in turn can have their subcontractors. This is where agility comes from. We can assemble just the right team for the project at hand. Everybody has clear accountabilities about the products and services they're there to deliver, and we still know who's accountable for the whole. Well, I can go on and on. Do you want to hear more of the benefits?
I think just listening carefully to what you just shared, Dean, it's really building that sense of ownership within your unique tribe, if I can use the term tribe,
Sure.
and, getting very focused on the excellence in that tribe to a customer-centric lens, so that you look at yourself with a supplier, customer-supplier relationship construct. So these are thoughtful organizational design, redesign concepts. When you step back and you look at the executives and maybe the boards of directors, do you see that we have enough normative language of what org design means and how powerful it is? I think back to the MBA programs, org design was always maybe an optional area. HR often gets relegated, but for all the line and executives at the top, do you think they understand the essence of org design and what org design's, power that can be unleashed?
Really,
We have so many conversations around the world, and how would they, if I gave them each a yellow sticky and said define org design, what would you think they'd say?
I think you've raised two very serious questions. One is, do leaders even understand that organizational design is their accountability? And in fact, perhaps their most important accountability. You get the organization right, you can empower your people, and they'll all be doing the right things for you without your having to be micromanaging and controlling every step. I think leaders really have to step up to the concept of working on the machine, not just in the machine, of designing an organization in which everyone can prosper and succeed, not being just a cog in the machine and the bottleneck. And then once they understand that that's their accountability, then the next question that you raise is, do they understand what org design entails? Mm-hmm. I think so many would just jump to the notion of organization design equals an organization chart. But, that's not true. That's only one little piece of it.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Dean. We don't train executives enough on systems thinking logic. Mm-hmm. The conversations with, of the different approaches in org designs and the impacts, we make the assumption that often the HR executives should be the champion torch. And that's actually not the right strategy. Many of the HR executives, I think, have grown up in benefits, compensation, worker needs, compensation systems and more compensation systems.
Yeah.
And you see in some organizations, they will have experts in org design there as a VP of org design, but those are the larger organizations. And then, so I'm just interested in the sense of, are we investing enough with organizational design experts to move them in and into leadership roles of substantive strategy development? Like, do we have chief organizational strategists at the top?
What a good idea. You're right. HR is not the place typically that you'll find visionary thinking on organization design. The purpose of HR is to look after the employment relationship and every aspect of that performance, of that relationship, and talent strategies. That's real different than the design of organizations. So I would differentiate organizational engineering or organizational effectiveness, if you will, OE, versus OD, organizational development, which is more of an HR thing. But organization design is an engineering science, and it is quite different than what most HR departments do. You see, Cindy, organizations send signals to people that guide their daily decisions and their actions. Like, imagine if I told you, hey, look, we got to run lean and mean here. We've got to be competitive. I want you to control costs and control headcount. But in this fictitious company, your salary, your title, and your ability to get things done all depends on how big an empire you got. So what are you going to do? You wave your arms about controlling costs and you build empires, right? Am I going to team with you, Cindy? Oh, no. I need the headcount myself, because you're basically paid to build empires. That's a perverse signal built right into the organization. So our challenge in leadership is to align all those signals so that we can empower people, and they'll naturally do the right things because based on the rules of the game.
Yeah,
It's
I'm really glad
deliberately
that,
engineering that.
yeah, I'm really happy that you articulated organizational engineering science, differentiation from organizational development, where people spend time on training and leadership development, alignment of behaviors with core values, but you're bringing in a broader architectural leadership skill across the complete envelope and the flows, right? And the signals, and whether they're implicit or explicit. We could have so much fun talking about this all day. Very different. I totally get it.
Very different profession.
Such a wise conversation, Dean. You, in your book, you talk about 5 organizational systems that are required to really advance the effective organizational design and engineering concepts. Can you describe those 5 approaches and methods? Because that's really the blueprint to ignite, your vision, and also, not just your vision, but your practical wisdom to execute far more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, this is the programming language of that organizational ecosystem. For all these decades, I've been on a hunt for where those signals are coming from. And it seems that most of the performance level and character of organizations, most of the signals come from 5 organization systems, all of which you leaders can program, that is, engineer. There are 3 big ones and 2 little ones. The 3 big ones are used to determine the overall character and feel and performance of the organization. The 2 little ones are for institutionalizing and fine-tuning. So here they are. The 3 big ones: structure, which includes both the organization chart and that teamwork process that sews us back together and gets work done. Those are both in the concept of structure. Number 2, the internal economy, the resource governance processes. This is where we award budgets based on what's expected of people in the year ahead, not what we plan to spend, not what it takes to sustain their headcount, but what they've got to deliver in the way of their products and services. And this is the way we are agile in our priorities and keep priorities aligned across the enterprise. That's internal economy, the resource governance processes. Number 3, culture, the way we work around here. That's not just high-level values and attitudes and feelings. It's behaviors, the habits of the organization. And those can be explicitly crafted. We do this. The behavioral approach, consistent with most learning theory, is the way to get real traction on culture. Those are the big 3: structure, internal economy, culture. For fine-tuning and institutionalizing, locking it down, 2 more. The best practices like ITIL and the agile scalable frameworks and CMMI and so on, the best practices that flow across the organization and the methods and tools that go with them. That's number 4. And number 5, metrics, both your performance appraisal metrics and dashboards that help people in real time to achieve performance, as well as the consequences that go with them, rewards on the upside and performance management on the downside. So with those 5 systems, you can determine the feel and performance of your organization.
So, Dean, one of the things that I've observed in my different leadership roles or popping into different cultures and multiple industries is the whole area on your point about the metrics, because the metrics create that focus of and my accountability. But often the employees can't see in real time the holistic construct, right? Like we still flow up the broader metric, maybe balance scorecard, the executives see, but all the relationships of my little tribe or how I fit into that. Well, I know we hadn't talked about asking this question, but I'm just curious to see anybody starting to put the dynamics of the flows into the logic in the value chain so they can all see their contributions. Just like an engineer might see the machine operating in
Yeah.
a zone.
It's important to feel a sense of purpose, and being part of an organization, an enterprise that has a meaningful mission can be motivational, but we really need to bring purpose home to each little group and measure people based on that. And this whole business within a business paradigm gives people that local purpose. By purpose, I mean doing something hard so you can be proud of it, that engages your unique talents and has value to others. Well, if you're a business within a business, you're there to deliver products and services to customers inside the company, people you know, people you can see. You really see the value you deliver. So building on that concept, let's turn to metrics. For performance metrics, it's more important to be comprehensive than to be precise. Because if you have just a subset of your metrics, then people will sub-optimize. They'll do that and ignore the rest of the job. So metrics as a list of projects you deliver, bad idea. You've got a business to run, a business that you've got to keep viable in the future through innovation. You've got customers to build relationships with and to serve. You've got suppliers to motivate. You've got a lot to do to run this business. So it's not just a list of projects. Metrics should be a holistic view of how you're doing at running a business within a business. And then maybe even more powerful, dashboards. Dashboards tell you how you're doing in real time so that you can adjust your behaviors to achieve those performance metrics. And so once we know what business you're in and how this organization should work, metrics are a great way of getting people really focused on success and giving them the tools they need to optimize their performance.
Yeah, it's hard enough not for me to start envisioning a new piece of software here of all these sciences coming together. Dean, where does one go to build the skills and expertise in organizational design as an engineering science? Obviously, we're talking about deep structural constructs, but where can one go based on your perspective of really to ensure that they're building the engineering science logic into their skill set?
Let me answer that in two parts, if I may, Cindy. There are two things going on here. One is leaders need a vision, that blueprint of the kind of organization you want to build, the end state. And then secondly, you need the tools, the actual design principles and change processes to get there. So before I answer your question about where do you go learn the engineering science, I would start with the vision, because you can use my tools, the engineering science, to build a really horrible or top-down controlling pejorative organization, and I hope you won't. So I would start with vision and see if you agree with this vision of a hierarchy made of a network of entrepreneurs. So to learn more about that, I hope people will start with my capstone book, How Organizations Should Work. I know you'll give them a link later.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that lays it out. And if you're excited about that vision, it also has an overview of the mechanics within it. And then the next step is to figure out, if that's the vision you want, how you're going to get from here to there. So the next step would be a transformation roadmap. And the way we go about that is customizing the vision for you, for your organization, and then having with your leadership team, and then measuring gaps against it and driving those gaps to root cause. Why would our good people create a gap against our vision? Is it because of structure? Is it because of internal economy? They don't have time. Is it because of culture? They didn't know they were supposed to. And when you see the root causes, you'll be able to see what needs to be redesigned to get from here to there. And then with each step, there's a whole study, but that can be just-in-time learning. Once you've committed, for example, to do structure, you can read up on it. We can talk about the steps in the process. And I think that's a just-in-time learning opportunity.
So Dean, thank you for those insightful comments. Let's step back and, to our earlier point, we've just come through a major pandemic. We can see that many organizations are fluctuating back and forth in terms of getting the right hybrid work structure in place. And many companies are revisiting their policies, their commercial real estate investments. So obviously the org structure, in a formal kind of physical sense, is going through a major shift. What do you think in terms of how what we've just talked about, does it change? How do you ensure that happiness and employee well-being get into the organizational design constructs at a deeper level? Because as we know in our research that, how you show up and how you're fit for service or engagement and fit for duty or fit for service to service your customers is very much predicated on how you wake up in the morning. And we do have 20 to 30% of the global population now waking up sad or angry. So let's that's the misery index research globally, right? But just to talk a little bit about the increasing aspects of org design engineering in relationship to the essence of your mood. Thoughts?
Well, there were a number of questions in there, Cindy. First, the pandemic and hybrid work, partial work from home, requires that you manage people by results, not look over their shoulder and watch their tasks. So my past clients who have implemented the business within a business paradigm were already really good at managing people by their deliverables, by results, not tasks, not a lot of oversight. So they found the transition to hybrid work very easy, they tell me. So that is essential. Now, to your point on people's mood and sense of well-being and sense of safety, first, I would point out that the business within a business paradigm gives people great jobs with lots of upside and that sense of purpose and that sense of career growth and opportunity for innovation. So it starts at the systemic level, designing organizations that by their very design are great places to work. That is, both suppliers of choice to their customers and employers of choice to their people. So the systemic factors that we're talking about are fundamental. But beyond that, there's the people dimension. And I know you're really, really good at that, Cindy. I think there are three things leaders need to excel at. One is business strategies, sure. The other is organization design. Think of the leverage of designing an organization and really driving the machine rather than being a cog in the machine. And the third thing is people management. So understanding the mood of your staff is a really critical dimension of people management, critical to attracting, inspiring, and retaining great talent. I think it is very important there. And also, if we had better data on people's moods, we could look into their concerns, the things that are bringing moods down, and diagnose the root causes. Don't just treat the symptoms. We're not after happiness ratings. We're after a great place to work, a productive and rewarding place to work. So let's get to root cause and figure out what's broken in the organizational ecosystem that would cause chronic disengagement and mood problems.
So Dean, just listening to you, I come up with another thought. You know me.
I do know you, Cindy.
The concept of corporate purpose, a sense of purpose within the business, within a business. And within the leadership language within the boards, there's a lot of research on the importance of having corporate purpose and sustainability and a broader, I'd almost say, gracious, more kinder approach to the meaning of the word purpose. I think what you're doing is you're really bringing in a language so that leaders can start to really engineer, I'll use the word engineer, structure their businesses so that each of those cogs in the wheel, right? They have a language and a sense of purpose, right? And, creating a sense of flow dialogue, maybe there's a new term there, flow dialogue. And because you so often see functional walls coming up, right? And barriers, because they don't have the language of horizontal thinking, right?
Yeah.
And language. And we've seen this languishing, and maybe at the end of the day, just like we had to improve the language of, you think about total quality, because you're bringing in the term root causal, and obviously we're both skilled in that area. I remember taking all of Michael Hammer's courses on business process reengineering, all of Xerox's courses through Deming and yada yada. But it just kind of strikes me that the language and the process and the approach is so important, right? And to get that systemically working, like when you think about employee onboarding programs, right? That may be, I think, a very powerful, is to get this language into the employee onboarding infrastructure, because that's where you're bringing in all the new talent. And, think about them coming into the new assembly line. Each of those resources can, if they were unified in the context of how to be organizational engineers, and maybe even also all knowing that they are all organizational engineers, right? That's part of their job description. Anyways, you got me all jazzed up here. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, no, language is...
I think I cooked up another book. Maybe I'll help you on this one.
It's interesting. I was just doing a podcast for a fellow over in Eastern Europe who teaches people to speak business English. And we talked about exactly this, the language of transformation. You see, transformation is not just about throwing out there a new organization chart or installing investment-based budgeting or a new priority setting process or
an ERP or a big...
Oh, definitely more than that. So really, transformation is about twisting minds. It's about twisting minds from do to sell, from bureaucrat to entrepreneur. And in addition to the systemic changes, in parallel with the systemic changes in structure and internal economy and culture and so on, there is this mind shift that takes place, partly by participating in those change processes, but also partly by the language we use. Let me give you an example. It's fashionable to say we should be partners in the business. IT and business should be partners to achieve business goals. What does that mean? Does that mean that IT tells the business how to do their job and the business tells IT how to do their job, and shared accountabilities or no accountabilities, and with all that meddling and unclear accountabilities, relationships get worse, not better? That's not the path to partnership. Whereas, by contrast, a clear internal customer-supplier relationship, respectful understanding of your different accountabilities and authorities, leads to the best kind of partnership. Here's another word that really gets my blood pressure up. Own. Now, we know what own means in English. It means you have possession of an asset and the right to determine the disposition of the asset, like what it looks like, who gets to use it, and so on. Cindy, you own your own car, right?
I do.
Yeah.
But I have to share it.
Well, so be it. But you and Perry own your car, so fine. But now, in business slang, I hear people, for example, in IT saying, we own applications. We own Now, what they really mean is they're accountable for selling applications, just like the car dealer is accountable for selling cars. But the language they use, we own apps. Okay, does that mean the car dealer owns cars? So you don't really own your car. The car dealer owns the car. They'll decide where you go and who gets to ride along with you. Thank you very much, because they own the car. Oops. All the wrong signals. No, IT doesn't own apps. The business own apps. IT sold it to them. So words like that, if you're deliberate about your language, that can really help with the mind shift to help people understand that they're entrepreneurs with customers to serve. It's a very important point.
Yeah, thank you for that. And And, you know, it also brings to mind when you've got diverse cultures and already have contextual meanings for words that in their own, because they're having to translate, right? There's a lot of complexity in language, and how do we simplify the language? Um, so we've talked a little bit about mood in relationship to, you know, enabling human performance, right? Which is obviously important. Got to get these people up in the morning and motivated and excited about servicing within their sense of purpose and the broader corporate purpose. Obviously, when you get into this area where we're focused in on AI, right, starts to bring in perspectives of how do you ensure privacy? They're very important. How do you ensure that people feel safe, they're secure, etc. So what do you think in terms of what you would do with mood if you had access to that in a very secure, private, and with a lot of anonymity to signal possibilities for improvement?
Yeah, I'll leave the issues of data quality and privacy to you. You're experts at the technologies. But if you could give me that kind of data as a leader, that would be awesome. I would, here, so you ask, what would I do with it? I would sort it into two buckets. One bucket is triage, emergency, stop the bleeding. And the other bucket I would treat as symptoms of deeper root causes. So for the triage, everybody's upset about something or other. Well, then you need to get in and fix that straight away, whatever is causing it. But for those where you have more time and you want to make a more lasting change, what you would do is say, why would this feeling keep coming up again and again? What is the root cause? It could be, for example, internal economy. What if so much more is expected of you than you have time to deliver, so that you go home at the end of the day feeling like you really haven't done a good job? You're discouraged all the time because you can never keep up, and you're pressured all the time, so your stress rises. What's going on here? Demand in excess of supply. Something's broken in the resource governance processes. That's internal economy. Or what if you come to work and just feel like it's drudgery and you've just got to do the same tasks day after day? Like with Mike Hammer's business process re-engineering, you're just working tasks on an assembly line. That's no sense of purpose. Your job is defined by roles and processes or responsibilities for tasks, not running a business. So get to root cause. We've defined jobs on the org chart in the wrong way. So if we look at those feelings, the feelings data coming out of an organization in those two buckets, and look at those where we have some time and get to root causes, that can lead you to formulate an organizational transformation strategy, a transformation roadmap. So that data could be critical to driving meaningful change.
Yeah, Dean, it's when you get into the data arena, there's so many incremental insights one could overlay. We probably need to do another podcast on you know, the triaging aspects of data that can give you insight for a greater sense of purpose and, you know, alignment for corporate purpose. I'd like to close our discussion, Dean, because you've had a chance to see our newest AI software product, Mood Insights. And for those of you listening, we're very excited about this product. It's just been recently commercialized. When you first saw it, I mean, you kind of talked about how you might already use it, but what was your first reaction, Dean, on value? Just to, you know, I really value our relationship, but, you know, thoughts there on the impact that we could have.
Cindy, I got to say, I'm proud of you. I'm excited about what you're doing. It's cool. I think it's great to make leaders more aware of their staff's feelings and more prone to doing something about it. That's the starting point for change, for building organizations that are great places to work. So if we can use your data, your tools, to motivate leaders' interest in building great organizations and motivate them to think about doing business in different ways, think about change, that alone is a huge contribution. And if that's something that they do about it is root cause analysis and permanent systemic change, perhaps using my work, then your data can be a key driver of organizational transformations. We know the goal, right, Cindy? We want to be a supplier of choice to our customers and an employer of choice to our staff. So we can use your data as the foundation to start down the path of significant and meaningful change.
Absolutely. Dean, it's always such a pleasure and an honor to have some time with you. I will turn things over to my partner, Malay, for closing comments. But just thank you so much. And I have a feeling there's another podcast here when it relates to sense of purpose within the corporate purpose envelope. And maybe we can bring some other leaders together that have been applying these sciences and how the benefits that they've received as well in those change journeys. Just thank you for the enlightenment, Malay.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you so much, Dean. I was taking notes for a bit, and there's so many things you shared, frameworks that we can keep in mind and follow. I would like to thank you especially for your kind words towards the end regarding the Mode Insights vision that we've been trying to drive in the market. For our audience, I hope you learned as much as I did, and you will be able to implement some of those insights. If you would like to get more information, more context on everything that Dean talked about, his book is available on Amazon, and the link is on your screen. You can, of course, just search for the book directly, and that may be easier. You can also check out Dean's work at Dean Meyer Associates Inc. on his website, and the email is available as well should you wish to contact him. So that brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you so much for adding to what has been a chain of insightful conversations. As I mentioned before, as a reminder to our audience, if you would like to look at this particular discussion, a recording will be up in our resources section on the website at saleschoice.com/resources. And in the meantime, of course, you can visit this today to look at all our historical conversations that we have had. Dean, with that, I would like to thank you earnestly for your time today, for being with us, for your kind words on Mood Insights. And we absolutely hope to have you again to continue this conversation.
Oh, Malay, I'd be honored. Cindy, Malay, thank you so much for including me.
Most welcome, Dean.
Thank you.